as I spent most of my day today promoting, invite guests to this. They're going to see the big picture. They're going to be curious. What's Strong Max Women, and which helps you in building your business. So make sure that you get on that, and from that, you will register for the free women's event globally. Learn from all the top millionaire earners in the network marketing industry through top producers in the female category.
Absolutely. I'm glad, Tammy, you brought that up. So at this point, Joe just joined in, and John Winterholler also joined in. And again, for those of you that might be new, Joe Voyticky is the CEO of Max International, who oversees the company as a whole on planet Earth. And we have John Winterholler, is a VP of the North American market, also the Australian market, in fact, all of the Americas. And John has graced us from his presence to assist with this call this evening. So we want to thank the both of you for joining in. Now, Joe and John, you are able to unmute yourselves. You're both as a co-host. So just want to confirm, John.
Yes, unmuted.
Perfect. And Joe?
Yep, I think, can you hear me?
Oh, wonderful. Absolutely. Loud and clear. Now, I know, Joe, that we had a special call, and to our wonderful surprise, is John Winterholler decided to join us, and I'm so happy that he was available to join us this evening. So maybe I have a series of questions, Joe, but at the same time, I know that John has also some great feedback. So maybe, Joe, I can turn this over to you for a minute, and at the end of the day, folks, just before Joe, again, I pass it over to you, I apologize. Just to give you a context of the call, is the key is for Joe to share his experience, and Joe and John to share their experience with the COVID-19, how Max have been dealing with this train wreck of an issue, which turnaround actually turned out to be, in some cases, an advantage, turning it into an advantage. And I'm really proud on how resilient our company is, Max International. So, Joe, I'm going to turn the call over to you to initiate. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So first, thank you, everybody, for joining the call. Really appreciate your time, as always. And one of the reasons that we're having this call is because we want to be as transparent with you guys as we can be about how we're managing the business and what we put in as a priority in terms of how we consider decisions that affect everybody. And it's always it's funny. I always think, okay, we've climbed every hill, every difficulty, overcome all these things, and the universe will throw another one at you that you have to manage and deal with. And it just seems to be the normal course, that there's always going to be another challenge. When we came into COVID last year, Max we were really rolling along. I mean, it was finally after all of us, and I mean everyone who's on this call has put in such a tremendous amount of work and tremendous effort into building the organization. We were experiencing extreme growth around the world. We had, in fact, hit a high point in terms of revenue and commissions at the end of 2019. And 2020, the first quarter was a record quarter for Max. And we had been very busy pouring investment into improving our services and expanding. And it was looking like 2020 was going to be an absolute banner year, like really put us into that great category of companies on a global scale. Not that I don't consider us great, but we were growing so well. And then it just stopped, like literally, boom. I was on my way on a flight to Ecuador. I was in New York, and I was stopping over to visit my family there, and we were headed down to Ecuador for our launch of the Ecuador market when the world basically closed, as we're all aware. Now, a couple of important things for people to understand to give some context. The majority of Max's revenue comes from overseas markets. And so, and what I mean by overseas is outside of the US and Canada. So when those markets are affected, it really affects our margins and then our ability to perform services. And those countries were hit the hardest by this. They affect, those countries, let's go through what they depend upon. They depend upon tourism and oil exporting. Those are their primary means of generating revenue within a lot of the countries that we operate. So when that happened, when everything came to a stop and you see oil prices were diving, you could basically, you could get a gallon of gas for very, very cheap during 2020. That was really bad for the economies of a lot of the countries that we operate in, which means that inflation set in, which means a lot, a cascading effect of different things. Now, when we looked at this issue in March and we saw revenue just suddenly, slow down greatly, we sat down. Well, I'll tell you, the first thing I did was, run around my place screaming and yelling, "You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me." So there was about 3 days of screaming, crying, and running around, cursing everything under the sun. Then I said, "Okay, back to we got to solve the problem, and we got to figure out what we're looking at and what we can do to make sure everything we can make it as best as we could." Right? There were a couple of goals that we set out to do with the management team at Max. Number one was I didn't want anyone to be without income during this period of time. So we didn't want any of the corporate employees to be without a job, because that would have been the first reaction is like, okay, we are expecting a significant decline in revenue. That means that you have to make cuts. You have to cut back on your expenses, spending, to keep the company's finances safe to move forward, because a lot of people rely on the products and a lot of people rely on the income. So from a corporate management side of things, we said, okay, we don't want anyone to be laid off. Number two, we don't want to mess around with our pricing or our commissions during a crisis, because there are too many people around the world that are relying on the products. It's so important to get these products. That's number one. And then there are a lot of people relying on this income in this, very turbulent time where there's so much uncertainty. So we sat down and said, okay, I wanted to make that promise to our staff that no one would be laid off and that we would be able to maintain everything for our associates as it were during a crisis. Right? Did not want to make drastic changes for them during a situation that is so uncertain. So that was the goal. And so the corporate staff across the board, and please understand that we all look at this as like we're all in these things together. This is one decision affects everybody across the board in some way, shape, or form. But if we're going to say that we are a unified team, then we have to we try to make decisions that are, when we have to sacrifice and the things are, going tough, then we all take the sacrifice, and those who can take it better should, at least in our philosophy, should take it to the extent that they can. So what we instituted across the board corporately was that those people who were making the highest salaries took the biggest pay cuts. That was across the board. So we did a uniform reverse regressive tax. And those people who were at the highest level of salary took the biggest pay cuts, and then lower at the people who had lower salaries, right? So, and that was voluntary across the board. So every single employee at Max worldwide participated in reformulating what our budget was and our expenses were so that we would be able to achieve all of the goals that I had just set forth. So we managed to do that. We didn't have to lay off a single employee across the entire globe, even though revenue was down 28%, right? Which is a very substantial decline, right? And it was understandable because across many of our markets, inflation had set in and people were, very concerned about the basics that they could spend money on, which is just, food or rent or whatever it was. So we managed to achieve that. But during the year, as you guys are no doubt aware, a lot of costs went up, right? So raw material costs went up, shipping costs went up. And so it was a very challenging year where our manufacturers are saying, hey, we got to increase our costs. The shippers are increasing their costs because there was so much backup. So there was just a lot of pressure from different points where we were saying, okay, can we manage these changes? One of the other changes that people probably aren't aware of is that lead times for goods went way up. So instead of being able to make an order for 4 months in advance, now you have to make an order 6 months in advance, which what does that mean from an economic standpoint? Just means that you have to lay out your capital further in advance, and it's a longer time before you can make a return on that. And then, as you guys have experienced, we have had more product shortages across the globe than we've had in years. And a lot of that is due to, factors that people just couldn't foresee, such as at one point in time, there was no glue available to put labels on a product, literally, because there was so much hand sanitizer being produced. All of the glue was gone. So we couldn't, and we called literally everywhere trying to find glue. I mean, I think John exhausted his extensive Rolodex in calling every single place around the world. And, and Jim, who you guys knows just about everybody, we couldn't find it anywhere. So it was just a series of challenges that would continue to come up throughout the year. And we were hoping, that we would be able to keep and maintain the costs and the commissions that we had in place. But with our costs increasing on a variety of different levels, we just didn't have any other choice at this point. And so we're hoping that the crisis is starting to alleviate, especially here in North America, as more and more people are getting vaccinated. And so while there is never like a great time to say, okay, we got to increase our costs, our prices, because we know how many people rely on these products, we're trying to find and strike that appropriate balance between increasing the prices, which, in Max's history, we've actually only decreased our prices, at least in the North American market, while trying to balance the commissions, which is our biggest expense in the company. And so we tried to find that right balance so that we maintain appropriate financial integrity for the organization as a whole. So that's how we've approached this problem. And then when we were looking at the adjustments that you guys, I hopefully you have a sense of where we are, where we wound up. We tried to involve the leaders around the world to tell them what the situation is, where we are, and where can we find that right balance. And a bunch of factors went into that as well. We looked at other companies in our industry, where they are and what their split is between CV and price. We looked at what was an appropriate margin for us to continue to be able to provide the services that we do. Well, the number one thing, the most important thing for us, the top priority is maintaining the quality of the product. Now, you guys are, I'm sure, aware that you can choose cheaper ingredients, and that is just not a place we ever want to go, because we always want one of our core principles is that our products are the highest quality, have the best testing, are bioavailable, and we want to maintain that. We always want to maintain product integrity. So we didn't want to compromise there. We didn't want to compromise on our manufacturing quality. So many places that we felt like, okay, those are not places that we want to go. And so we tried our best to strike an appropriate balance, and then say, okay, here's where we think it is. Go through it with the leaders, look at what their view of it is, because ultimately, you guys are the ones that have to talk to the customers and consume, tell them why this is a good value for money, etc. So that's a bit of what we were trying to accomplish, what the factors that we were dealing with, how we approached the problem, and hopefully have come up with the best solution we can in a very trying time. And so it was a very thorough process. I can say that I'm really proud of the corporate staff for going through what they had gone through over the last year to make sure that we kept the business as strong as we could under very, very trying circumstances, and super appreciate their sacrifice. I'm very happy with the thoroughness of the process and deliberate nature that we went through to try to wait as long as we could before making this type of decision, because if the world had rebounded back to where it was, then everything would have just moved along as it had been. So we waited as long as we could until we feel that, okay, now it has to happen, because the one thing we do not want to do is put the organization at a great risk where we have to make drastic decisions, because I don't think those ever really work out very, very well. It becomes a cascading effect that you may not be able to come back from. And so the process we went through, I felt, was a very deliberate one. A lot of careful consideration went into it, a lot of involvement from a number of different parties, and this is where we are, which I think will provide, I'm confident will provide, the long-term stability that we all want and have enjoyed for the last 13 years.
That's wonderful, Joe. I really appreciate that. If I may, John, and I know that over and above what Joe has shared, I know Joe has a world perspective and on the topic. And by the way, Rachel from Malaysia, I want to thank you for joining us. This is wonderful. Really appreciate it. And all of you that are from the international market to join us, thank you for joining us. Really do appreciate this. So John, back to you. What could you add in from the point of view that you oversee the Americas, and what can you add based on what Joe has shared?
Well, I want to give you a little more background about Joe's leadership and how during this pandemic, where we needed to move and pivot on a dime, it was an interesting exercise, because immediately after the pandemic hit and we were all thrust into our homes full time, we began having 3 times a week management global leadership calls. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, the entire global management team of Max is on the phone with Joe, with Jim, with Larry, with Tyler, all the GMs, a lot of the support staff throughout the markets. And I have to attest that I believe that we are more effective as an organization now than we were even before the pandemic. We've learned a lot of lessons that, as you started, Chris, you mentioned communication. I think that is one of the great parts of what's come out of this in terms of Max International and our corporate involvement and teamwork together. All, we hope, which is being felt by you because it's all directed at you and your success. My compliments to Joe for that, for continuing that and allowing that forum for everyone in all the markets to communicate and be able to touch base with each other every day. the one thing I want to compliment every one of you on, and you're probably a lot like me. Most of the time I'm feeling a bit Zoom fatigued. Our days are consumed with online meetings. Seeing many of your faces just helps my soul tonight, because it's been 16 long months since I was in Canada the last time and was able to shake your hands and be with you as we were there for a series of meetings. Little did we know that that wasn't going to happen for a while, and again for a while. But what I've noticed across all of our markets, and this meeting tonight is an indication of that, we've become used to a new and perhaps more effective way at working together, using social media, using technology. I'll liken this to when I go and I need to blow my nose, I go and get a Kleenex. No matter what the brand is that I purchased, I call it a Kleenex. Now we call it Zoom. Whether we're on any platform, we're Zooming right now. And each one of us has become more proficient, more comfortable in our own skin, being online, talking to one another, creating conversations, establishing relationships with one another, which in this industry is where it all begins. It doesn't all begin because we're trying to push a product or because we want to sign up a new customer or associate. Each one of you has a legitimate and strong desire to get to know other people and to help them, perhaps with their help, but more importantly, for them just to become acquainted with you, your life, and you become interested in them. That's the secret to this business. And you've started to show great results on behalf of the company and on the behalf of your own businesses by doing just that. Chris, you also mentioned at the beginning that events are a big part of this industry. And I think that's part of one of the cloudy things we can't see in the future. What are events going to look like? We know that the day will come when we'll have some of those really magnanimous events that we're used to at Max. That day will come when travel restrictions are lifted. Reward and recognition will be plentiful at that point to go around. But we're trying to do some more creative things to make sure that we're communicating. On June 24th, coming up, will be the second version of the Come Together conference that will bring our North America, Latin America, Australia, and New Zealand markets together on a virtual conference. It'll go about 90 minutes or so, be at 8 o'clock Eastern time, the night of June 24th. We're going through some great planning exercises right now. We'll feature Joe and Jim and Jenny from our events and recognition department. We're also going to feature many of you, and I have an invitation to extend to each one of you. In the latter part of 2020, we instituted what we called the Max Recognition Program, the Maximum Effort Reward Recognition Certificate. And we recognized the first time around about 39 people. When we did the second time of recognizing people, we did around 70. And I expect that number is going to more than double, because we're going to do two different things. One, our corporate staff in all of our offices are going to take advantage and nominate those of you who they hear from often, that we know are working incessantly and dedicated to the success of the Max business. And then I want to extend the invitation to each of you to nominate each other for the Maximum Effort Award. Next week, you'll be receiving an email, and you'll be invited to recognize people within your own teams, within your own markets and beyond, for things that they're doing to help themselves and others be successful. And so we want to hear from you in a big way about that, as well as we'd like to know in this event coming up, as well as future events, what other topics and lessons that we can help bring to you to bring us together as a team. The theme is Come Together. We plan on doing this at least twice more after June during this year as a substitute for us getting together in person. But something tells me that this will become a tradition as well, that we'll continue to do these online events for a long time to come. My status for the markets is I'm amazed at how resilient all of you and everyone in our markets have been under very trying circumstances and times. I cannot imagine a time that has been better for our business on one hand, in that 2 years ago, if you wanted to have a conversation with someone about their immune system and what they're doing to support it, that might have been a real sleeper of a conversation. It was not top of mind for most people. Today, it's probably, if we did a survey, it would be in the top 5 of people wanting to talk about what they're doing. Did they take their vitamins? Did they take their Celgevity? Are they vaccinated yet? What are they doing to protect themselves and others around them? And so I don't think there's been a better time to be a part of Max International ever, in that our products are still the best in the world. They address the very issues that are going on in our markets and in our world today. So I don't think we need to be shy in any way, shape, or form of having that conversation as we get to know people and as you expand your prowess on social media, on using Zoom or any other platform, and making friends across the world, which is some of the success that we have in working for a global company. There are no borders. There are no boundaries for us to succeed. And to that end, that's what we hope to do every day, is support you in those efforts.
Well, thanks so much for sharing, John. As you're talking about, the new changes and how we're adjusting to all of this, I have to say, I mean, we used to travel all the time, and I had to seriously adjust myself because I'm a people person. I'm a belly to belly person, and the social media platform was a new thing for me, and I really, really love what we have accomplished over the last year and a half with everybody. It's amazing to see people really come out of their shells. We're seeing people that have never done Facebook Lives that are sharing their stories, especially through our Strong Max Women platform. Lots of women are stepping up where we just weren't comfortable in front of the camera. Now it becomes a natural thing, right? So these shifts have really helped a lot of people grow new skills and get comfortable doing these new skills. So
yeah, some of you, you're not in my same position, but I have a face that was made for radio. Okay. So I don't like seeing myself online. I don't looking at my own pictures or hearing my own voice, but I've just had to get used to it. And so it takes some of that adjustment on a personal basis, is just making sure that you're comfortable and you can have a conversation. And to me, it's marvelous to think that we can have this conversation. It looks to me like there's 50 or more people online right now. There's not a break in the conversation. There's no static. We can get on these calls and communicate probably more effectively than if we're in the ballroom at the Marriott, where we're trying to finagle the sound system and people are coming in and going out, and we're worried about the food and worried about the refreshments. And did someone get there in the snowstorm? Now we can just worry about important things and work. And Tammy, like you, I spent a lot of time on a plane. And at first, I really enjoyed not having to go to the airport and get on the plane. But just in the last couple of months, I've really felt some cabin fever, needing to say, I like that belly to belly, as you said. I miss the human contact and human interaction. So I'm looking forward, as this pandemic, we hope, continues to wind down, and as our directors of disease and health controls and things help us all get through it. I hope each one of you has had an opportunity, based on the rules in your locales and things, to consider getting the vaccine. My family has completed that. I'm not sure that does anything other than give us some comfort that we've done all we can and continue to socially isolate and distance where we need to. And at the same time, we want to live our lives. Summer's coming, right? We want to get out and enjoy it. And so we'll all do our part and continue to do our part. But in the end, we are one big family at Max. And I think just looking at your faces on the screen tonight helps solidify that with me once again. And I thank you for that. And it's wonderful to see your smiling faces.
That's wonderful, John. Really, thank you for your wonderful insight and feedback. I'd like to turn it over to Joe. When you touched on, as we all know, on May 1st, there will be an increase in prices. And I know that Without getting into a lot of details, Joe, maybe you can share with the audience listening in just a little bit of the logic that Max is taking to balance the CV and the pricing on a global aspect. If you can touch down on that, and this is as of May 1st, if you don't mind going share this aspect.
Sure, it's fine. So again, the way we are trying to the way we approached it was again trying to find the appropriate balance because we don't want to raise prices to a degree that it becomes just utterly shocking to everybody and they're like, ooh, can't afford that. So we tried to find that appropriate balance as I was discussing earlier. So on I can go through a couple of Chris, or would you like me to just go through all of them?
Maybe more on a, because I mean we don't have any visual to share right now. It's for the audience to get a feel for everything is okay, everything is good. There will be a bit of an increase in price. The CV will be affected, but you've actually measured things. You and the team has measured the impact to make sure that the ownership will remain and just so people understand. But I will leave that up to you to decide to share what you feel is appropriate to share.
Okay. Yeah, so I can go. I'm happy to go through them. The reason I wouldn't put them up on the screen or anything is because we want to be able to send that message out from corporate as we're having a slight adjustments here and there, and I don't want to have one thing go out and then it change in a couple of days because we're still receiving some feedback from leaders around the world saying, okay, can you tweak this or can you tweak that? So we're right up to the last minute. The finance team is working on everything to try to take into account all of the input that we've received. Now, some products are more expensive for us to make than others, right? So that we also try to balance that out as well, right? So there's a bit of a give and a take because, so for example, product like Celgevity, which has a lot of different ingredients and all, of course, high quality ingredients is a bit more expensive to produce than say a product like Max One, right? Which is ribosine, right? So that we try to balance those things out and we're trying to level set prices across the globe. That was another thing that was requested by the leaders that prices not vary too much from market to market. So where we came out there was we're trying to create regional stability, right? So that in a market, say, if we're looking at Latin American markets, so El Salvador, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, and Ecuador, try to keep all of the prices within a very small variance, so to speak, right? Or the African countries, the same thing. We want to make sure that they're all within the same range so that there's not an advantage or a disadvantage from one market to another market that's right next to each other. So we did our best to strike that balance as well. So that's kind of the project. We've been working on this for at least 8 months. To try to really analyze it properly. Get as much input from people as we can. So I'm happy to go through them with you for at least not on the pack prices, but on individual SKUs for the U.S. market. So the Celgevity, which is our number one seller, it was at 65 for an associate loyalty price and 65 CV. That's gone to $72 a loyalty and 60 CV. With a product like Max One, which was 60 and 60, it is now price remains at 60, but the CV moves to 55. For Max GXL, GXL, it was 50 and 50. It is now 60 and 50. This is as of May 1st. Max ATP was 55 and 55. It is now 60 and 50. And that is the same for Infuse, which is a product that is in a similar category, 60 and 60. It's now 60 and 50. Max 357 was 55 and 55. It will now be 60 and 50. Max, the Switch product, this is where the biggest change is. It was 65 and 65. It's now 70 and 50. So I think that covers just about everything that is a major seller in this market. Is there any other questions that people have about, or any other products you want me to cover, Chris? Any other offerings?
No, I think you've given a good overview on the products that people are ordering. Obviously, the packs we'll see, but I can see that the price will vary anywhere between $5, except for the cell DVD. You're looking at maybe $7, and the CV. What I do like is that the company's been careful in maintaining the qualification of the 50 CV. So when you order your two products, you maintain your 100 CV, which is very, very, very important. So that way it does not deviate, the ownership of qualification that could create a major problem. So in a sense, the price will increase a little bit, but technically the business will be not that affected because the CV is maintained for people to qualify, which is a very, very smart approach.
Yeah, I think certain leaders up in Canada probably told us to make sure we do that.
Now, there is a question here. I'm just kind of going, Jasmine, talk about the sport pack. And I know, folks, there were some other questions. I'll come back to that at the end here about Cameroon and things like this. I don't have the answer to that. We'll see. But anyway, so when it comes to the sport pack price, do you have any idea on that one?
We're working on finalizing the pack prices right now. So I don't have those in front of me. But you can expect that they will be slightly discounted from the individual SKU prices, right? And so we're working on making sure that that's okay. Now, one of the things that I see a question here about shipping, right? So one of the projects that we're working on, because this is an area where we can help address some of these increases, is we're working on making a quarterly auto ship available. Right. And what a quarterly auto ship will do, we think there's a number of real benefits to having a quarterly auto ship. Number one is that there will be a shipping savings, right? And at least for the US market, I have to check on the shipping costs to Canada, as you guys are keenly aware. Shipping in Canada is a pricey prospect anyway. The quarterly auto ship in the US would basically save the amount of the increase in price fundamentally. It becomes almost a wash. But when we do the shipping on a monthly basis, it's expensive. Shipping costs have gone up across the globe, which was really, to be honest with you, it was completely bizarre to me with the price of oil going down. I don't understand why the shippers were raising their prices. It's just like, okay, this doesn't make sense, but that's what they did. But if we have a quarterly auto ship, we feel that will benefit the business in a couple of ways. One, it's a savings to the customer. And two, it makes it a easier sale and retention, right? Because one of the things that we always battle with is, okay, if people take the product for 3 months, we know that they're going to have a very positive effect in staying on it. Sometimes people take it in a month, sometimes they don't. But if we're able to say, hey, you have a quarterly auto ship where you'll have this type of savings due to shipping, we think that will increase retention, and we think that it will be beneficial overall for sales.
Okay.
So this is strictly for the customer base?
No, it'll be for anyone, right?
Okay.
There'll be a quarterly auto ship. We're working right now on the programming to make sure that on a quarterly auto ship, the commissions are spread over 3 months, so qualifications you don't have to do it every month, right? So we had to do a bit of programming. We're trying to time it so that it would be at the same time, but we're not quite sure yet whether we're going to get there so that it works efficiently, right? It's one of those things that, okay, we think we got it, but if you don't have it and it's not working, as you want it to, then it becomes like a real negative. But we're trying to make sure that will be available as soon as possible, and hopefully that'll work out well. Paul Testman just into questions like, will it be for other countries such as Africa or continents? The quarterly auto-ship really only functions as a savings in places where you have mail, a mail system, right? So it's really something that would address this type of savings in US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. The other countries, I'm not sure. Maybe it would work in Malaysia or not, but other countries are really not, or mostly they go to the pickup centers to pick up the products. So it's not something that has a functional savings, so to speak.
Okay, no, this is good. And I know we're coming close to the top of the hour. I noticed Linda has asked a question in reference to the cosmetic price. Is there a change on that, or the price remains as they are?
Yeah, they're remaining where they are. We made a price adjustment in the West African markets in Ghana. I certainly think that we'll be able to bring that over to the U.S. And North America as well. It's just a question of having the time to get that done.
Okay. And one thing, Joe, I wanted to bring up, and feel free, John, to jump in too if you want to. I know that everybody's aware we have a brand new back office. I know I've been listening to the training. I'm not sure if everybody on this call have been attending the trainings. I know Lewis did a phenomenal job sharing the details. Very simple functionality of the back office. And I'm telling you, folks, I feel really, really good, and I'm excited that Max owned the technology, because now when we require certain things, like for example, with link generators and things like that, Max has you don't have to turn around and wait on a queue of 6 months to get things implemented, but you can implement it as you see fit. Is there anything that you'd like to add in reference to the new back office and your point of view, you or John?
Yeah, I will gladly say a few words. It has been an heroic effort on the part of our IT staff to deliver such a world-class product. It is evolutionary. There are constantly updates and improvements being made to it, which we can look to over a very long period of time for those to continue to happen. It's also been an heroic effort on the part of the leaders who've been asked to have input, many of you, or which are on the phone today, to tell us what you need, what you want, to give that feedback through our IT liaisons, to attend the trainings that are going on right now with those liaisons that are being held weekly and even more often. And that will help us get better and better. So just continue to have that feedback coming so we can give you all the tools that you need. Our IT staff is enormously dedicated to making this happen. So as we transition from the old and what we're familiar with to the new, there might be some level of discomfort that you might have, but that will pass quickly, I believe, as you get used to the new way of doing business, the new tools, the much better look and feel and response times. All of that will work to your benefit as this continues to mature. So be positive about that. We certainly are, and look forward to seeing how that rolls out and how that develops. That's
wonderful. Thank you. Last question I'd like to pose here as we finish our last thoughts here. I'm excited about the future. I mean, I'm seeing the excitement. I'm seeing people adapting to the technology, as you stated, John, earlier. And Joe, you touched on an interesting new aspect of the 3 months or 4 months ownership, which is quarterly, which is really, really awesome. Maybe you want to share your point of view on the near future and the long term with Max. Do you have anything you'd like to add? I find it very exciting. Without having you revealing things that Max is not ready to reveal. What can you reveal that could really people can hang on to in reference to our near future and long term?
I think you referenced it earlier that people are so much more aware of the need to have good health. I think that that is, very, very key for us. It seems that there are a lot more studies, and the FDA, they loosened up basically so many of their rules with respect to the development of a vaccine, which is, vaccines, and I think yet you see the positive results of, of being able to strike an appropriate balance between the needs of the public and the need for, significant regulation. And one of the things that I've found very interesting that people haven't really talked about a huge amount is the fact that the human body is about 96 to 97, 98% effective. And that's true across most populations. There are certain segments of the population that are affected more by this disease than this virus than other parts of the population. But for the most part, our bodies were very, very effective at defending themselves. Now, why not talk about products that help enhance the most effective defense system that we have? Even the best of the vaccines is 95% effective, which isn't as effective as our bodies on a general basis, right? So I think that there isn't a farce, there's not a long way to go until people start saying, hey, how do we just keep ourselves healthy, right? How do we improve the thing that works best, which is ourselves? And so hopefully, I know that there are a number of studies that are going on utilizing NAC, one at Sloan Kettering, one at Harvard, that's focused on the use of NAC to increase the level of glutathione to prevent, to fight COVID. And so, we've seen initial studies come out, they wouldn't be at the size of the studies that they've got without having had, preliminary decent results, right? Which bodes very, very well for us, and it means that hopefully people are going to be opening up their minds a bit more to glutathione and its benefits. And, and if we continue down that path as we are, Max is now, I hope you guys have had the opportunity to attend some of our medical symposiums, and we have more coming out. We're really going to push upon this theme of these are medical grade products. These products have scientific validity. They make a very, very significant difference in the foundation of cellular health. And so as we do that, we'll be pushing that agenda and driving more, towards trying to get people to conduct human clinicals, which is something that seems to be a very big desire for. People really want to see it. We've had one human clinical that is done. We're waiting for the results on that one because, as you guys know, those are all done by third parties, and Max doesn't have any control over any of it because we want, third party validation. But I think that you're going to see a very strong trend towards looking at supplementation as a very important and legitimate way for people to stay healthy. That's one. Number two is, we've continued, even in the midst of this nightmare, we've continued to expand. So people are asking about Cameroon, and see people asking about Mexico. That is absolutely going forward. We are going to continue to expand. We've continued to put the work in that's necessary. We've got product approval, as many of you guys know, in Kenya, and we're working actively to get that market up and running sometime this year. Cameroon, the same thing. We are right now in the process of renovating the office there. So everything there looks to be certainly will be fully functional and operational. Sometimes probably late second, early third quarter of this year. And a lot of that depends upon making sure that we have adequate product supply. that's the supply chain has been still greatly disrupted. It's starting to work itself out. So we have great hope that both of those markets will open up.
Joe, if I could, let me just make one bit of recognition here. Joe mentioned the Health Care Symposium, which I just didn't want to have not mentioned on the call today. That is a huge catalyst, I think, for a lot of people. But on my screen, the way it's appearing at least, is a young lady who I think was in large part responsible for what came about, and that's Janet Moriyama. Janet worked with me and a team to help do something on a smaller scale that we thought was going to be there in Toronto in person. The pandemic hit and it grew and it expanded, and we got Bobby Horn involved. And the next thing we know, we have a global medical healthcare symposium. And so my thanks to Janet and to all those who worked with us on that core team to bring that about, because that's truly an opportunity that Max International has that other companies don't, because of the nature and the quality and the science backing that we have of our product. So Janet, well done and thank you. I look forward to many more of these to come.
Thank you for doing this, John. This is wonderful. And as we end this call, and thank you, Janet. And I agree. I know you put a lot of work into it, and unfortunately, things have not materialized in the way that we planned it, but it ended up being done. And thank you for that. Just as we end this call, I know that Luz has mentioned, May is coming and people are waiting for the prices and everything else. I know, Joe, we spoke this afternoon. You mentioned it'll be an announcement, I believe, on Wednesday. Is that something that will be on the blog for everybody to see?
Yeah, we're putting that together right now, and so we were targeting Wednesday. We were, of course, reminded that our Wednesday is a lot of other people's Thursdays. So we, on a global basis, we're trying to do this on a market by market basis. So we will make every effort to get this out to Malaysia and the Philippines and Australia, New Zealand by late tomorrow for those of us in the North American market, so they have it on Wednesday, on their Wednesday, and we'll have it on our Wednesday, and you know how that goes. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that it is out there. We're going through this now so that you guys can hear what the prices are, right? But again, the finance team is working very hard to, take those last minute tweaks, so you guys have a good sense of where it is. It's not, I don't look at it as like drastic right now. These are not dramatic changes. The most important thing that I want to convey to you guys is that we always try, we would never, and this is something that again, I'm very proud of the corporate staff for this, is that they never do anything without themselves doing it first, right? If we're going to ask something of people, we should be willing to do the same. And all of them, and when you interact with them, and I'm sure they weren't, running around screaming and telling everybody, oh my gosh, we've all taken this huge, these sacrifices, and good on them, because they did it, willingly, and the team, sacrificed because they believe in what we're trying to do and trying to accomplish. And they understood that we didn't want to act in a capricious manner and affect you guys. So they put the field and the consumers ahead of themselves. And that's the kind of people you want to work with, that they understand that a lot of people are relying on this, and that it was a very, very difficult year, incredibly hard year. So the folks that are doing the day-to-day work to support your businesses, they're good people, and they're willing to sacrifice without any fanfare or recognition, because I certainly didn't make that announcement last year that this is something that we were doing, nor did I want to do that, because I didn't want to set off any kind of panic. What I wanted to do was make sure that we set the business up in a manner that we could fulfill the goals that I had stated, and took that to the team, and they all jumped on board and said, okay, if this is what it's going to take, then this is what we do. And so they're good folks. So when you talk to your customer ambassadors, or you talk to your GM, know that they're in the boat with you, and they're fighting hard to keep the business as stable as possible. And it's, I always look at it as our responsibility as managers of the organization to make sure that it's financially sound, and that we're making decisions not out of any sort of greed to make more money, but being responsible for an organization that has a very important purpose, and to provide great products at an affordable price, and to provide people with an opportunity to earn a living if they so choose. And we're trying to do that on a global basis, and we can't do it without each other and without transparency. We can't do it without good communication, which Chris and Tammy, constantly remind me of, and they have to put up with my little fits of of anger and whatever else comes out of me from time to time. And they do a really good job of keeping me mentally straight and reminding me of what it means to be a good leader. So you guys are working with two of the best in the world. I'm very privileged to have them, keep me sane. And we're all in this together. And it's a really great company that we have, filled with wonderful people and wonderful products. And I'm very, very happy and thrilled to be a part of this team, and never more proud than in a significant crisis. It has been, the most challenging year that I think I've had at Max, and wouldn't have been able to accomplish what we've accomplished without so many sacrifices from people all over the world. And that speaks very, very well of everybody that's a part of our organization.
Well, thank you, Jill and John. Tammy and I couldn't expect a better call. It was clear, it was very elaborate, and there was a lot of clarity and transparency. And I can assure that I appreciate that. And I think I speak for all of us here on this call. We really appreciate your integrity and transparency to help us understand the process. So thank you very much to the both of you.
Yes, thank you so
Wonderful
much.
to see everyone. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So at this point, folks, I'm just going to unmute you all. And I think everybody can unmute themselves right now. So at this point, if you want to express words of gratitude, please do so as we end the call.
Thanks, Joe and John. We love you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe and John.
Okay, Kenny, that's all.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Guys,
Have a
all-
great evening.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for Puerto Rico. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Love
you.
you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, John.
Bye-bye, Janet.
Hey,
Thank you, everyone.
so we have Ibrahim from Guinea. This is wonderful. We have a really good Okay, folks. So I'm going to end the call on this note. Have yourself a wonderful weekend.
Be well.
Okay.
Bye-bye.